Hi everyone. Hopefully my lighting is fixed tonight and not acting like the little brat that it was last night. I think that's a little bright. There we go. Yes, firelight. See? Forgiving, beautiful firelight. Good to see everyone again here on night 9 of the Orphan's Tales live reading series. The deep dive into my past that this has become. I'm actually pretty excited about tonight because it's one of my favorite parts of the whole book. Like, I'm very proud of this little bit, even if I'm not proud of all of them. And I feel like this, you can very much see the kernel of like even space opera in this. The comedian that I would become is in this little bit we're about to get to toward the end of tonight's reading. Very exciting. So, yeah, I've been a mum all day, so my brain is sort of out to lunch. But it was a nice day. It was very warm and sunny, so we went down to the closest thing to a park there is on the island and pretended that this all wasn't happening for, half an hour, which is a nice thing. I hope that you have moments where you can pretend that this isn't happening. And I feel like we have entered the part of the pandemic where we just watch the numbers go up, but everyone's helpless. There's nothing we can do. Like, there is just such a feeling of static helplessness to all of this. And I'm sure you all feel it too. See, in our houses, someone suggested on the next door today that everyone put a candle in their window as a display of solidarity. But like, we're not leaving our houses, so I don't know what a candle in the window does. But I guess it's something. Anyway, thank you all for coming tonight. Let's get the housekeeping out of the way. Those of you who've been here for all 9 nights know how this song goes. This is not an audiobook of The Orphan's Tales. Whatever it is emphatically not that. This, for legal purposes, is a play. It's a one-woman show produced for you and you alone. You can find the archive of previous nights on my YouTube channel, Cat Valenti Live. You can subscribe to my Patreon at Cat Valenti. You can follow me on Twitter at Cat Valenti. There is a tip jar in my user profile here on Instagram, also on my website, catherinemvalenti.com. There's absolutely no need for you to put anything in it. These are all free every night until we can go back to our lives. But times are very tight for me and for other artists, and it's we are a particularly vulnerable population because we are all self-employed. So if you felt like tossing a coin to your witch, it would be deeply, deeply appreciated, and I will thank anyone who does so personally on the next stream. So that's deeply appreciated on every level. As far as talking about things I remember about writing this, I mean, I don't even remember writing it, to be perfectly honest. I feel like it was probably one of those things that came so well and so easily that it just seems like it happened. I have a dim memory of writing it very quickly and being pleased with it because I'm not sure I'd actually written anything. No, I suppose there's humor in the labyrinth, but anything particularly funny in my fiction before, or meant to be funny, or arch, or camp in this particular way. So it was a new thing for me, and I remember being excited about it. So, but beyond that, I just remember that I have read this part I have read out loud at so many different readings. There are parts of The Orphan's Tales that I read a lot because SJ did a song of them, and you were listening to SJ Tucker's music just then. There are 2 albums based on these books, and you can find them at sjtucker.com and at Bandcamp under the same name. I read those parts because there is a song that goes with them, and SJ and I used to tour around doing these reading concerts of the Orphan's Tales. But there are also parts that I used to read because I knew they would get a response. And when I went from reading the Orphan's Tales in public to reading Palimpsest, which has very little humor at all in it, I remember having this moment of the first real Palimpsest reading, and no one laughed. No, but because no one laughed, there's nothing for them to laugh at. But because no one laughed, no one responded. Whereas I'd been so used to them laughing at little bits, and particularly at the bit I'm going to read toward the end here tonight, at the Orphan's Tales, I'd become reliant on that kind of feedback from the audience to feel like I was doing okay. And people would come up to me afterwards and tell me how much they loved Palimpsest and that it meant something to them. But like in the moment, it was just silence while I read a sex scene. It was a lot. And I thought, oh, I will never do this again. I will never write a book without comedy again, because I need people to respond when I'm reading these things, which are always going to be about my heart, not, just on my sleeve, but like on my vest and dripping down my cleavage and everything else. My heart is all over my outfit. And like, I decided then and there that I would always accompany that with something funny so that I wouldn't just be standing there in front of a crowd while everyone is dead silent. So this is kind of the thing that I used to read from the Orphan's Tales that convinced me that was the thing to do. You'll know when we get there. Let's get started. The Tale of the Harpoon and the Heron. Lachaea, the harpoon star, burned black the marsh grass as he came. The smell of it, scorched bread and copper filings, heralded him long before his light appeared over one of the hills. In great circles it scalded, crisped, sizzled. Each step sent up hisses of steam as he walked through the great marsh, frogs and eels yelping in wordless terror as the fire of his heels lapped at their oily bodies. I felt the song of the grass steaming before I could see him. It had been many years since my brother had left his hermitage, where he hunted moons like quick pale stags. You'll forgive the flowery talk, won't you? Our family does so love to be told they're beautiful. Vanity is an old and venerable habit. He was white, of course. His sort of stars, the small and hot burning ones, are always white. His hair fell like newly washed sheets, long and flat to his waist, and his skin faded into the pale horizon, the shade of paper turned to ash. A great spear was slung over his shoulder by a strap of white serpent hide. His golden eyes panted beneath colorless lashes. He was barefoot. In fact, he wore no clothing but a bleached cloth over his angular hips, and his thighs were covered in arcane tattoos, the symbols of the star tongue. Yet even the ink of these markings was a strange silver that showed only when touched by the trailing marsh mist. I embraced my brother awkwardly as he entered my hall, sending twigs into tiny conflagrations. I did not, of course, wish to burn my tammies, but the proper affection must always be shown to visiting family. I tried to make the usual pleasantries and invitations to drink, but he would not have it. I have news. It cannot wait. Will you for once allow me to speak my piece without interruption? I blushed with great dignity and abashed grace. Settling myself to listen, I gratefully mused that Beast was out engaging one of the princes that come into our realm occasionally, and so there would be nothing to disturb Lachaea in his tale. He was not over fond of Beast. Stars care only for their kin. At any rate, they are dreadfully formal creatures, and Beast would be bored. Removing his spear from his shoulders, he sighed heavily, and his voice echoed through the trees like clouds across the face of the moon. A terrible thing has occurred. A man has killed our sister, the snake star of the south. He waited for my reaction, but the black ibis emir already winged north to tell me of her death, to weep his great sapphire tears into my hands. Seeing that I was not surprised, Lachaea pressed on. I did not realize she had tarried so long in that damned kingdom, that blighted land of festering winds and towers that bruise the sky with iron fingertips. The Star's Tale. I confess that I was much consumed with my hunt, for I pursued a great rarity, a firebird, as a wedding present for my poor wretched sister, and I tracked him over many a hill and river-carved valley. You know how we can be about things which sparkle and shine. We imagine they will put back something of what has been lost. Firebirds are over-fond of red fruits, and I had hoped to lure him with crimson seeds gathered from the ixora, the torch trees of the desert, very difficult to harvest. But the firebird's favorite delicacy, bright and soft as a cherry, with a pit cased in flint and iron to light the new tree aflame. Some firebirds, it is said, even nest among the trees and return there to lay their eggs in the ash like salmon swimming upriver. I waited in the salt flats that bordered the tinderbox desert, and the ixora that fire the night to keep the sky warm for the sun when it has gone below the earth. In the twilight I could see their orange branches flickering, snapping, sparking up like the camp of 1,000 soldiers. I saw no firebirds, but I was not concerned. They are secretive, and the forest of torch trees is wide. I spent weeks searching out the guttering, dying ones and collecting the juice-filled rubies as they dropped. I combed the ash of those already dead and found no flaming eggs. Finally, I had strewn the salt with cherry seeds. They were as bright as drops of blood. Surely the firebird would swoop down to snatch them up in his bronze beak. I waited for 3 nights, and the firebird did not come. But on the 3rd night I forgot him entirely. An appalling phantasm caught me on the flats, and all thought of my quarry vanished. 3 of our sister's handmaidens, you know them, of course, sweet little serpent girls they are, their hair all flowered with jade grass snakes and emerald vipers, stumbled through the sand, clutching each other for the strength to stand. Their holy vestments were torn as if by a great claw, hanging from their thin bodies like curls of new paper. I turned my head aside to give them modesty, for they were as near to naked as makes no difference, and their pale, leaf-light skin was desert scalded to scarlet. They moaned and screamed in such pitiful tones, a choir of anguish echoing in the desert canyons. I took this at first for simple cries of pain, but it was a lament, and a wet requiem. They clutched me by my face and turned me toward them, forced me to witness their shame. Brother, they were so horrible to see I can hardly tell you of their faces. Their wounds were a tapestry of broken flesh. And yet even this had not sated the men who dared lay hands on their sacred bodies, but their tongues had been cut out by rough knives, and only ragged stumps remained to form words. One took a strange object from her sister and pressed it miserably into her parched mouth. "Spear, brother," she hissed. "Our mistress is slain, dead and gone. This is what the men who took her did to us. They were pig demons. They mauled our bodies with cloven hoofs. We have walked all this way to find her grave and find some part of her family. Pray put us to death so we may not suffer longer than it was necessary to deliver our message." I looked on, nauseated, as the second of our sister's maidens took the object from her sister's mouth and pushed it into her own. "We have traveled far to find one of our kin to take the burden of knowledge from us. We are not suicides. You have to help us. But in turn, we will help you. We are seers. We know what is to come. We see the flux of time like water poured from one cup to another. You must go now to the north and prevent vengeance from falling into the hands of one who would pervert what our mistress has already done in her own name, who would erase her holy work only to scribble it over with his own. She has died. She is risen. In his bumbling, he will rob her of those things all a shade can own." She took a lump of pink flesh from her mouth and gave it to the last of her sisters. "Holy seers, what is this misshapen thing you pass from mouth to mouth?" I asked with trepidation. Such terrible magic was at work here I hardly dared speak. "The stars leave divination to those tied to the earth. We do not dabble in the future. Why would my sister have broken with tradition so? We stole it from the basilisk. whispered the third oracle pitifully. "It is a tongue, so that we may speak to you to grant this warning. Were we to hunt down 3 monsters, we are siblings, we share among us." The third sister was clearly the eldest and the bearer of the clearest vision. She closed the one eye that remained to her and spoke without inflection the prophecy that she had journeyed so far to disclose. "You must see the Marsh King. A creature of snow and claw will come to him, begging to avenge our mistress. In order to incur your favor, he must not be allowed to pursue this. Snakes see to their own. She does not require this animal's assistance. If he should stand in her place, her death will be wasted. This path must divert from hers in our sight. You will only cause her death to be wasted. Her coils are still in motion, and the quest of the creature will bring ruin on her plans. Do you understand, Spear, brother?" I nodded my assent in the traditional manner, pressing my forehead to hers and accepting their burden. With this, all 3 of them in one movement collapsed into the soundless sand, their fall as silent as snakeskin on the dunes. They were quite faint, hunger and sun and burning forest having leached all but the last of their light from them. The basilisk tongue rolled from their third sister's mouth and onto the hot gold of the earth. Their eyes rolled up into their heads, and their mouths formed pleas I could not hear, but understood well enough. But I could not do what they asked. Even a bird must know that. Death is the wall we dare not look behind, and no star has ever killed another. I would not be the first murderer of my kind. Instead, I gathered up the blood-dropped cherries from the sand. What good could they be now? My sister could not marvel at the color and the light of the firebird. One by one, I carried woman and fruit into the tinderbox true, laid them out beneath the torch trees. In their blazing light, the maidens seemed to glow as they must have when my sister took them in. I cut deep into the torch trees' ashen trunks with my harpoon. The bark is quite black and hard, calcified into iron by the constant fire. But within there is nothing but ash and a thin veil of boiling sap, as the trees consume themselves from the inside out. Only when they have burnt themselves to nothing will they drop a seed, the precious seed. And the clever gardener will catch it as it falls, while the tree crumbles into white ash and nothing more, so that the seed will not burst and flare the moment it cracks onto the hard desert stones. Of course, I had a sack bulging with the volatile little things, and no need of waiting till the Ixora died. Carefully I peeled them and conserved the wet, sweet fruit, piling the flint pits carefully as an apology to the tall tree, so that when it died for true, a veritable jungle would grow in its place. With equal care, I broke the sap vein deep in the ash and dribbled the waxy scalding stuff onto the mashed red cherry flesh. All this I smeared into the mouths of the 3 oracles, and then, forgive my arrogance, Brother Heron, I cut into my own arm and let the pale light of my body flow into the searing medicine, into their mouths. We know of no greater sacrament, and I knew of no other thing I could do for them. It was hours before they could sit up, and I was well healed by then. They did not thank me, still black in their misery, but the snakes of their hairs hissed sweet and comforting in my direction. Wading in their sorrow like drunkards, they moved off into the desert, past the trees, swaying from side to side, clutching each other. As they passed my cairn of seeds, the youngest of them kicked it over, and they vanished in the flash of spark and thick smoke. The tale of the harpoon and the heron continued. He had finished his tale. "Ah," I interrupted, "the poor basilisk. Has he no tongue at all now? What a wretched fate. He sang so beautifully last equinox when I visited his caves." Lacheia glared sternly at me, making it quite clear that the happenstance of my friend the basilisk was of no concern to him. "So you understand, bird brother. When the creature comes, you must stop him." "How to stop a creature on a quest? What do you expect me to do, spoil the hospitality of my hall?" Lacheia snorted. "I do not care. Kill him. Lock him away in a tree trunk. I trust in your wisdom. But I must bid you farewell. Much have I neglected in my journey into your marsh. I must attend to the funeral rites of our sister. It's not my place. It is not the place of any of us to interfere in the quests of men. They insist on them. They are as fond of quests as they are of their own hearts. Who is to say it will be a man? Laquais answered, bored as a babe. With this, the white-clad star left my hall, scorching the grass once more as he walked southward, sending up veils of mist that dissipated like a memory when he had gone, and not even his footfalls could be heard. The tavern keeper's tale continued. To the tavern keeper, I will stop for a sip. So you see, my dear lad, the dilemma. The Marsh King crossed his reed-like legs in a curiously fey gesture. In no way can I allow you to do what you intend. It is not personal, of course. It is best in the end to let women see to their own vengeance. Those who meddle are seldom thanked. Take my dear Harpoon's story as an exemplum. Now, I don't suppose I can convince you to scurry on home and be a good bear from now on. I shifted on my paws and murdered my tears where they stood. I cannot simply give up. I will go on whether or not you tell me the truth. If she can contrive her own revenge from the grave, perhaps she can grant me this small thing I ask. Why would the gods conspire to rob me of a mate? Is it such a terrible thing to mate? It is, in fact, quite insignificant, the Marsh King said gently. The gods, if you insist on calling them such, do not conspire, but events themselves order the world like a pack of cards. And there is little you or I can do to change the cut of the deck. We must learn to accept personal loss gracefully. Duty is a noble word, after all. I stamped in frustration, and the branches of the hall shook wildly. There must be a way. I have begun a quest. Quests do not simply end. You win or you lose. It's not just suddenly over. I believe that you have, so to speak, put your finger on it. I see that it is not possible for you to accept that at this time you simply lose. It is because a quest is not a natural thing for your kind, nor mine, for that matter. A quest is a thing for men. It is their invention, their monstrous pet, their addiction. They own all the rights in perpetuity. Every step you take, my dear Eyvind, you are robbing men of their most dearly bought treasure. It is sad for them that they have only the machinery of questing to sustain them, but they are a sad race. We must weep for them, but not too much. And we certainly must not take on their ridiculous penchant for self-destructive behavior. Therefore I have devised a way to prevent you from reaching the land of my late sister, and yet preserve a small chance for you to achieve the end you desire. I shall make you into the very model of a quest. I shall make you a man. My mouth gaped. Horror shuddered through my fur, and sweat dampened my great white jowls. A man? Why would you punish me so? It is not a punishment, you sorry beast, the Marsh King scoffed. You took on a quest, which is a thing only men, and exceedingly stupid men usually, do. So you must become a man if you wish to continue on that doomed path. It's all really very simple and nicely symmetrical if you think about it, and a man is not such a hideous shape to find oneself in. But if I am a man, the snake star will not listen to me. Stars run from men. They hide away from their sweat and their stink. I can never see my beloved again. She would run from me herself. She would think me a hunter. I could not bear to see her run from me. Oh, calm yourself. I did not say it would be permanent. You know, you might consider that a mate is not strictly necessary to survival. Look at Beast and me. We live together quite happily in blissful bachelorhood. We are not at all bothered by the lack of great galumphing girl bears about the house. At this, Beast looked up from quietly playing a game of bark-piece backgammon against himself. Oh, yes, quite happily. Except for the flies, you know. His Majesty does tend to diet on a rather eclectic selection, quite nauseating to watch. He settled back into the game, which he was earnestly but decidedly losing. Well, the Marsh King pursed his beak politely. At any rate, your manliness need only last for a relatively brief period. I have already discussed this in detail with some of the lower stars, white dwarfs and the like. I shall bundle you up tight as a mitten in a human skin until, and here he cleared his long blue throat dramatically, The Virgin is devoured, the sea turns to gold, and the saints migrate west on wings of endless eggs. In the star's name, what does that mean? I haven't the faintest idea. Isn't it marvelous? Oracles always have the best poetry. I only repeated what I was told. It is rather rude of you to expect magic, prophecy, and interpretation. That's asking quite a lot, even from a king. He appeared quite flustered, feathers blushing up to an indignant violet. Well, keep a lookout for that sort of thing, don't you know? Sea turning to gold, hard to miss, I'd say. Rather. Lucky to have such obvious signs. I think you would be grateful. Now, hold still. Let's get on with our business. Wait, I haven't agreed to... I meant to protest further, but I found my tongue no longer worked entirely well. It was short and stumpy and stuck to the roof of my mouth. Horrified, I glanced down at my mighty and beautiful paws, only to find wretched, pasty feet covered with a scraggly down, stuck ridiculously at the bottom of skinny legs. With one touch of his wing, the Marsh King had made me, hideously, but certainly, a man. We've got a Marsh King illustration here, where he looks quite wonderful. Yet the sovereign had changed as well. He was no longer a tall and regal bird with a respectably threatening wingspan, but a bent old man with a long beard that flashed all the colors of the swamp, green and brown and a brackish gray. He appeared somewhat fish-like, with sallow, damp skin and a wide, pale mouth. "What's this?" I mumbled as best I could with my worthless tongue. "Yeah? What? Ugh. Of course, I am sorry. Should have explained. When you were an animal, I appeared as a suitably noble animal. As you are now a man, I appear to you as a grandfatherly old type meant to inspire the proper respect from your new breed of creature. It's a courtesy I extend, think nothing of it." "But beast?" I inquired helplessly, for the scarlet-hoofed creature was quite the same as before. "Beast is just beast. He's always beast," came the monarch's bored but affectionate reply. Hearing his name, the courtier's crimson head bobbed pertly. "Just beast," he assured me. The Marsh King raised himself up and ushered me out the door with the air of a host who has just realized he is one guest away from a comfortable nap. "Off you go then, Evind, my boy, and ho, you really are a boy. Splendid. We shall see you again, I have no doubt. Run along, fare thee well, and all that rot." The tale of the prince and the goose continued. Evind's body relaxed. He heaved his great mass onto a stool and sighed. "And I've been a man ever since. I got old and got fat until I looked something like a bear again, what with the gut and the hair. It doesn't do any good. I'm not a bear. I try, but I'm not. I'm still waiting for the sea to turn. It never does. I stay close to the marshes, hoping it's true that kings don't lie. I don't have much hope. After all, your father is a king. The marshes aren't more than a week's journey north of here. The days, they have their way with me now. Maybe I'll just die serving beer to brats in a filthy tavern." The prince stared at the surface of the bar, the loops and whorls of the wood like a fingerprint. "I am sorry for you," he mumbled. Evind's face purpled. "I don't need your pity, boy. It's a useless load. I'll give you a pair of walking boots with no promise they'll fit if you carry a message. You ask that no good bird when I'll be getting my own back. I'm sick of waiting." The Marsh King, you mean? "Stars, boy, you're thick as a cub still sucking at its dam. Yes, the Marsh King. A week's walk north and you'll be knee-deep in mud and eels. Now take these and be off before I charge you rent for that stool you're ruining." He tossed a muddied pair of greasy black boots, several sizes too big for the young prince, onto the bar and disappeared with a final grunt into the back room. Leander took the boots gingerly and slipped out of the tavern, his face burning under the stare of the bedraggled patrons. He set out north as Eyvind had said, and indeed at length he came to the dismal marshes, their borders a clear and sodden green, full of the stink of rotting grass and bone. He easily picked up the scent of the lucrata itself, which was indeed very like blood, coppery and sharp. The marshes were wide and smoke-colored, jade over polished wood. the sluicine paths of swamplands with their rattling cattails and poised egrets. The water shimmered like necklaces laid over one another, and beneath the water he could see fat eels and the flash of fish. In fact, the prince found the marshes very beautiful, but every step sucked at his oversized shoes until the going was so slow he thought he might very well be stuck there, save that he knew he must return to the witch by the new moon in order to fulfill his promise. And so he dragged himself through the swamps, mud sloshing round his boots and catching the sheath of his sword in its wet pockets. At each upstep, the mammoth boots threatened to catch, but slapped up against his heels at the last second. In the center of the marsh there was a copse of tamarind trees, their reddish bark glinting as though embers burned within. He wondered at it for a moment, drawn to their color, but Leander had had enough of magic, and he quite feared to be further delayed by whatever terror dwelt inside. He gave it a wide berth, though it meant wetting his breeches to the waist. Just as he passed the copse, a shape composed itself seemingly out of water and grasses, blocking his way. "Do you insult me by passing through my land without a visit?" The shape coalesced into an old man whose beard drooped like the whiskers of catfish and whose hair was a great mass of tumbling moss. His eyes were precisely the shade of marsh water, sparkling green and brown in turns. His hands were wrapped in river reeds, and his cloak was sewn together from fallen leaves and acorn mash. He stood calmly 3 feet over the nearest cluster of grasses, finely webbed feet resting on the air, bemusedly smoking a pipe fashioned from willow whips. "Well?" he demanded. The prince did not splutter nor grasp for words like a dying trout gulping for water that will not come. He blinked slowly once, twice, and sat down heavily on a moss-covered boulder. The spectre laughed heartily. "Poor little hatchling. It gets to be a little bewildering after a while. I admit it. I am the Marsh King." He gave a courtly little bow. "And you will have come from the Witch of the Glen to kill my friend, Beast." "Of course I can't let you do that, but I am happy to pass the time discussing it with you if you would like to have a discourse on the subject." "A discourse? On whether or not I am going to kill the Lucrata," Leander replied, nonplussed. The Marsh King's shaggy head bobbed merrily. "He doesn't stand on formalities, just Beast." "Whether or not I am going to kill the Beast, then?" "I'm afraid you still haven't got it, my lad. Just Beast. He thinks the makes it seem as though he's putting on airs. Fine chap, Beast is." "Beast, then." "Beast. And whether I ought to kill him." "A discourse is such a fine thing," the Marsh King sighed dreamily. "I recall I had a wonderful one once, 50 years ago or so. Some other upstanding, earnest hatchling harassing Beast. Oh, they do come along at quite a clip these days. Let's have one, shall we?" The Marsh King's eyes flashed like a glimpse of eel flesh in the shallow water, gleeful and fey. The Discourse of the Marsh King. When the last young man came round, he was very rude about it, all manner of officious in his gold tassels and scarlet cape. He didn't visit me either, but when I appeared, he was amiable enough, set his cape down on that rock, crossed his legs, as ready to discourse with me as to lop off poor Beast's head. Now, I began at the simplest point, as you'll see. "Why do you want to kill Beast? He's not borrowed your sword and forgotten to return it. He's not spoiled your favorite sedan chair. He's not bothered you at all." "I'm a prince," he replied, being rather dense. "It is the function of a prince. Value A, to kill monsters. Value B, for the purpose of establishing order. Value C, and maintaining a steady supply of maidens. Value D. If one inserts the derivative of value A, prince, into the equation y equals bc plus cd squared, and set it equal to 0, giving the apex of the parabola, namely the point of intersection between A, prince, and B, monster, one determines value E, a stable kingdom. It's all very complicated. If you have a chart handy, I can graph it for you." "Ah, my lad," I said after he had quite spoiled one of my topographical charts with scribbling equations, "but Beast is not a monster. He does not gobble up maidens like cucumber sandwiches. He keeps to himself, like any civilized beast." "But is he quite ugly?" the prince insisted. "I think he's a fine fellow, but some might consider him homely, yes. And he smells foul? Well, cannot argue with you there. One ought not to stand downwind. And he does have a terrible jaw of bone and great tall horns? Yes, you've got beast all right. Then he is a monster, the prince crowed, and I must slay him at once. The formula works. Your formula must result in a great deal of fighting, I mused. Oh yes, when implied correctly, mighty and noble battles result. Of course I always win. The value of Prince X is a constant. It cannot be lesser than that of Monster Y. This is the moral superiority hypothesis made famous 500 years ago by my ancestor Ethelred, the mathematician king. We've never seen his equal in all these centuries. Of that I have no doubt. If that is all, I believe I must be about my proof, said the prince, brandishing his sword experimentally. That's what we call a slaying, he explained, giving the great blade a swing over his head. For each time a monster is killed, the hypothesis is proven. How jolly of you to give it such a civilized name. But I cannot allow it. But, he spluttered, indignant, the formula. Nevertheless, this is my kingdom, and no violence may come to anyone within its borders as long as I can help it. That, at least, you should understand. Here, my word is law. Yes, he nodded. The universal monarchic algorithm is most central to the theorem. Theorem? Of proper conduct. Ah, I did my thesis on the monarchic algorithm, the young man huffed defensively. If you will not allow violence within your borders, a moment while I make some calculations, he scribbled on my beautiful charts again. I shall call him out. If he is a proper monster, he will not refuse a challenge from a nobleman. I sighed, giving in to the inevitable. No, that he will not. Very well then, the prince marched off, humming a mnemonic tune as he went. And we'll have to wait next week to find out what happened to our accountant knight on his quest to kill a very nice beast. I do take questions at the end if you have any, but you have to be pretty quick because people tend to run off. So if anyone has any questions, I will answer them now. I think you can kind of see what I meant about there's a bit of space opera in that. Just the taking ridiculous things very seriously is like the core of half of comedy, but there's definitely a little bit of the more recent books in that. Well, if nobody has any questions, this has not been an audiobook of The Orphan's Tales. This has been a play for legal reasons. You can find the archive on Cat Valenti Live. Which fairy tales are these sections from? They're from The Orphan's Tales, which are fairy tales that I wrote. That was, the last bit was from the Discourse of the Marsh King. We covered the tale of the harpoon and the heron, the star's tale, we finished up the tavern keeper's tale. We got some more of the Prince and the Goose, the tale of the Prince and the Goose, and we just finished up the Discourse of the Marsh King. So we actually moved through quite a number of tales tonight, whether we or not we got through very many pages. We are on page 112, if you're following along at home. So we've gotten through 100 pages. Yay! Your kitties like my voice. Aw, hi kitties. Very sweet kitties. Well, they're taken from my brain. The question is, I was wondering if they're taken from a specific mythology. These stories are from a novel I wrote called The Orphan's Tales. There are hundreds of tales throughout the series. They're all inspired by mythologies from around the world. And then some of them are inspired by any particular mythology. Obviously, my little fairy tale algebra thing is just making fun of fairy tales and princes. I make fun of princes a lot in this series. But there's definitely inspirations that come up from all over the place. Lakea is a name from one of the Hawaiian dialects. I do remember that. But if you are new to this series, you won't have heard me say that I wrote these books 18 years ago. And my memory of what made me choose any particular thing is extremely poor. So I can say that there's a little bit of Danish, there's a little bit of Hawaiian, and there's a little bit of Scandinavian, and there is, the Lucrata is just medieval European. An actual beast from bestiary. I didn't make up the Lucrata. Some of these beasts I made up, some of them I didn't. So that, I mean, that's the level of like trying to incorporate folklore and mythology and fairy tales from all over the world that I tried to do with this series. It's very much tries not to stick very hard to the standard sort of Grimm's Western fairy tales, and get a little further than that. Who would I fan cast as the Marsh King? I don't know, Hugh Laurie. I think Hugh Laurie would be good. It's very his character from Blackadder. So I think that off the top of my head, that would be my choice. Yeah. So yeah, I was saying you can find the archive of all the other nights at my YouTube channel, which is Cat Valenti Live. You can subscribe to my Patreon at Cat Valenti. You can follow me on Twitter at Cat Valenti. There is a tip jar in my Instagram user profile and one on my website at catherinemvalenti.com. You are absolutely not obligated to put anything in it or even acknowledge that it exists, but times are very tight for us self-employed freelancers. So if you wanted to toss a coin to your witch, it would be deeply appreciated by everyone in this house, from the tiny, well, not tiny, my enormous cat to my slightly more enormous dog to my same size as the dog human child. And anyone who puts anything in the hat, I will thank you on the next stream. Thank you all for tuning in. I will see you tomorrow night at 8:30 Eastern Time. Same fairy tale time, same fairy tale channel. Have a lovely, lovely evening. I hope that you and yours are doing as well as you possibly can in this very difficult time. I'll see you all tomorrow.